Excited to be here, learning about careers in project management. What happens on the other side of graduation? We're going to talk today about career paths for project managers, how people come into their project management profession, and how people exit if they choose to exit, and what some of the opportunities are for those people in either staying in project management or having gone through project management and exiting. So we're going to talk about some not only about project management itself, but also kind of the higher levels of how project management supports the business strategy. And so we got some cool topics today. But before we do that, I want to find out more about you. Let's see, the 5 degree programs here are what? We got a technology management degree program. Raise your hand if you're from that program. Who here is in software development and gaming?
Or interested, right? If you're gonna,
or interested.
Students are going to be enrolling essentially in the next few weeks, declaring their major.
Oh, okay, great, super.
Wednesday of next week, right?
Yeah, Wednesday of next week.
How long is the period for generals before a major has to be declared?
It's 3/4.
3/4, okay, great, super.
And that's like CS generals.
Who else is, what other degree programs are declared already in this room? Okay, information systems and then computer science, okay. And web development, okay. How many of you have already been thinking about pursuing a career in project management? Okay, so about maybe like a 5th or a 6th of the group, okay. Shout out some names of companies where you've interned if you have already done an internship. Blue Panda, where else?
Barrick Gold Corporation.
Where?
Barrick Gold Corporation.
Barrick Gold, where else? Rice Point. Oh, okay, great. Anybody else?
Task Easy, Advanced MD, Newmetric.
You've been at Advanced MD and Newmetric? Okay, great. And Task Easy? Okay, all right, great. Okay, so my last question is, what problems are you trying to solve by coming to this today? Like, what questions are you trying to answer for yourself? I'll give you like 10 seconds to think of what that question is while I give you some examples. Oh, if you've already ready to, if you're, yeah, great.
Basically, in a resume format, first introducing myself to the company, how do I get this value across? Because not a lot of people get it.
Okay, all right, yeah. I don't have like a slide about that per se, but we can definitely speak to that. Other questions? Yes?
Is it realistic to expect to immediately get hired on as a project manager, or is it more realistic to expect to work as a team member in a group environment and then move your way up to a project manager?
Okay, great. We are going to talk about that specifically, so that's great. So we're going to answer that question today. Other questions that we have? Okay, all right, super. So my name is Dale Richards. I'm the founder of Swattage Project Management Advisors. I have a bachelor's in Russian language and literature from Brigham Young University, and I have a master's in business administration from James Madison in Virginia. Anybody here been to Virginia? Been to the Shenandoah Valley, James Madison-ish? Pretty, very beautiful country, yeah. Let's see. So Swattage Project Management Advisors, we're a project management consulting firm. We work basically in these 3 industries. Software and technology, we work in construction and engineering, and then also in energy. So what we do is we help companies that are operating in these industries to improve the quality of their project management. So that's a main thing that we do is it's called project management practice improvement, where we work with we look at their current internal project management practices, and we evaluate them in terms of maturity and effectiveness. And then we help to introduce changes to make that project management better. So that's kind of the principal business. Another thing that we do is we do third-party project manager staff augmentation. So if a company doesn't necessarily want to hire a permanent, like a full-time permanent employee as a project manager, they can find someone through us. We can staff that project management need, and the benefit to them is that rather than just finding someone with whatever background that person may or may not have, when they hire someone from our team, they're actually getting like an entire project management office with other support staff, so like a business analysts, senior seasoned project management leaders. So we can offer companies a lot of flexibility in terms of the seniority or the experience level of the people that we provide to them, but we still can provide them with senior level oversight, even if they're paying for someone that has a little bit less experience. So there's lots of different levers we can pull to get someone to meet a company's project management needs while also fitting their budget. All right, businesses are like machines, right? Instead of gears and circuits, they have people, processes, and technologies. And companies are always acquiring customers, providing products or services, and then they are collecting money and accounting for those collections, right? So there's kind of the sales, marketing, the front end piece of bringing new customers in. There's the actual rendering of value, and then there's collection. So the problem, though, is that these functions are always running, and it's really difficult to just say, hey, everyone stop what you're doing. We need to make some changes, right? That never, ever happens. And so out of this need to introduce change to a business, we've seen over time disciplines like project management, change management, and business process engineering arise, right? So we have to engineer what the new change is going to be. We have to gradually introduce that change, and a lot of times those changes become projects. They become projectized. So they're defined as a project, and they are managed and executed as a project. And Swattage, Project Management Advisors, does these three things. These are our specialties. So, all right. Everyone's familiar with what a project is. I don't know how much detail I need to go into about this, but a project is a temporary effort that yields a unique output. A lot of times people will say, we've got this project going on, and I'll say, great, when does it end? And they say, oh, it's ongoing. And I say, then it's not a project. A project has a start and an end and a unique output. So if you were to map time here on the x-axis and map activity on the y-axis, in a traditional project management method, what will happen is that you'll have what's called an initiation phase, where we say, okay, this project is going to be defined as accomplishing these objectives, and it's going to have these pieces, and that's and here are who the customers are, etc. Then we have a planning phase. Who's already familiar with this, like these project phases? So somewhat, I seeing okay, so a good mix. So it's worth going through this. Okay. After an initiation phase, we have a planning phase where we map out the work to be done in detail. We plan budgets, etc. Then we have this execution phase, and this is when most of the actual project work gets done. So actually, like pulling the trigger, doing the work. We also have what's called a monitoring and controlling phase. That's where we track progress against the plan. And then we also have a closing phase. That's where we close out contracts. We accept the deliverables from the project, meaning that someone approves, like the customer approves what he or she or they have ordered or defined as the project outcome. They say, yeah, that's what we wanted. Great, thank you very much. We close out contracts and we pay all the people. Okay, so the project management career path. So this is going to start to answer your question, all right? Okay, here's what happens. Project managers can come into the project management career path through the front door. Typically, that looks like a position as a project coordinator or as an associate project manager. So I had a young man come to visit me in my office once, probably November-ish, and he said, I can't find any job as a project manager that's entry level. I can't find any position that doesn't require like 3 to 5 years of experience. And I said, that's right, that's because you're looking at the wrong job title. If you want to enter into the project management career path, you need to look for titles like these, project coordinator or an associate project manager. That's one way you could enter the project management role. Now, most people don't do that. Most people come into the project manager role as what we call a functional contributor. And when we say functional, we're talking about the functions within the business. So people come in through a marketing function, or they come in through a software development function, or an IT operations function, or they come in through some other function, all right? Where they have been a specialist, and they've demonstrated like competence, right? They've shown that they're smart, they can figure stuff out, they can provide leadership, and then someone says, hey, you're smart, why don't you manage this project? Or why don't you become a project manager? We have this vacancy open, why don't you go ahead and apply for this? And then what happens is that they get thrown into this role as a project manager, but they haven't had any training. They haven't necessarily had any coursework in project management. Now it sounds like everyone coming out of Neumont is going to have some project management training, and that's great. I'm telling you, what a blessing. That's going to put you so far ahead in terms of your ability to engage with technologists and business stakeholders to build out technology for a business. Because most of the time, technology in a business is managed in some kind of a project framework or a context, and we're going to talk about that as well. Okay, the people that come in, some people come in deliberately. a lot of people kind of fall into this role. We call them accidental project managers, right? Because they were planning on a career in web development, or they were planning on a career in IT operations. And then suddenly it's like, oh, I never, like if you were to go to your 4-year-old niece or your 7-year-old nephew and said, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? They probably won't say, I want to be a project manager, right? That's not like that's not in their awareness set. They're not even like aware that that profession even exists. But there is such a need for project managers today. And so that's why people fall into this role. So then what happens is that their company sends them away and get trained. Now in your case, you will already have had that training, and that's great. So they work for a while as a project manager and they get promoted. They become a senior project manager. And then what happens is that they can continue to pursue a project management career path when they move into senior leadership, or they can exit. When they continue on the project management career path, they take on titles like a program manager, a portfolio manager, a PMO manager, or a PMO director. A program manager manages like multiple projects at the same time that are somehow interrelated. And typically, a program manager will have multiple project managers, either hardline or dotted line, reporting up to them, right? So they're over like this broad effort, but there are actual individual project managers assigned to each piece of the program. So that's what we call program management. Portfolio management, we're going to talk about here in a little bit, but it's like basically managing all of the projects and programs in an organization that deliver change to that organization. And then we also have what's called a PMO. Who's heard of this term PMO before? Okay, it stands for a project management office. It can also stand for a program management office or a portfolio management office. And this is the team that, I'll explain that in a little bit here. From kind of the nitty-gritty of senior project management leadership, one could move into a role of a VP of project management or a VP of ops, and then into the C-suite. So it is possible to start at the beginning of a project management career and move all the way to the C-suite. So just in case you may have been wondering if that's even a thing, yes, it is a thing. All right, now, a lot of times what happens is that after this tenure as a project manager, this person will decide, you know what, this has been great, I've learned a lot, I've gotten a lot of cross-functional experience working with people from marketing, people from sales, people from finance, people from accounting, people from software devs, whatever. And they say, I'm done. I'm ready to go back into a functional role as a functional leader. And so then what happens is that oftentimes they'll become, for example, like a director of operations or a director of mostly operations, director of technology development or product development or something like that. So, and that's fine. Basically what that means is that they no longer have to manage the cross-functional efforts to change the business, but they can focus on contributing as a leader to those changes, and then someone else is going to pull the teams together to change the business, and they will be part of that, but now they're specializing in one part of the business rather than in being a generalist in all of the parts of the business. How are we doing so far? Questions? Yes?
Yeah, one question. On the portfolio manager, you said they take care of all the different projects that are initiating change within the business.
Yes.
That makes it sound like it's excluding things that are like just day-to-day operations, like this is normal routine.
Correct.
And it doesn't need to change right now, so they're not over any of that.
Right. Remember the analogy of businesses being like machines. If the machine is running, if we've got a process in a business that is already operating just fine, then these people will never ever have to deal with that because it's already been set up. It's already running, and there is a functional leader who is responsible for that. So if there's something about customer service that's already working and already running, and I'm the director of customer service, I'm responsible to make sure that continues to work. But then if we need to make a change to that, then the project manager comes in and says, let's make these changes, and those changes will impact you and other teams, so let's go ahead and plan out what the changes are, and we'll execute them. Yeah. Now let's talk about portfolio management for a little bit. You're going to leave school, right? And you're going to start working either as a project manager or as some kind of a functional contributor, right? You're going to be programming, coding, operating IT systems, etc. Well, and then let's say you move into the PM role. Well, eventually, it's not enough to just have a single project managed by somebody, right? A company is going to have more than one project going on at one time. In fact, most companies have multiple change efforts that happen all the time. Why is that? Well, you've got lots of different potential initiatives that you could take on to change the business. And what will happen is that this executive team, like the C-suite, what they're doing is they're saying, okay, we got to change the business in this way, and this way, and this way. And they've got all these different ideas, and all the ideas are really shiny, and they are alluring, and they want to do all of them. But the company has limited resources, and so it's important to set up some kind of a method or a framework to select the projects that have the highest financial value and the highest strategic value. What do we mean by strategic value? Well, the executive team defines this business strategy. They say, in this year, we've got these strategic objectives. We're going to go into these new markets. We're going to launch these new products. We're going to access this new segment in this way. So they define what the business strategy is. Well, in order to realize that business strategy, we have to change the business in order to enable the business to go after those markets. Okay, so the executive team defines this business strategy. Well, then what needs to happen then is we need to say, okay, if we want to accomplish these objectives, we need to figure out which of all these projects are the right projects to support the business strategy. And so what happens is that the portfolio manager or the portfolio director, they will implement this process of project portfolio management to look at all the different potential projects. And they will say, okay, project A has a financial value of $400,000, and it's got a strategic value of like plus or minus, $2 million. It's going to help us go into this new market. It's going to help us launch these new products, et cetera. So project A is worth this much. Project B is going to cost more and it's worth less. So we're going to prioritize project B after project A. Well, project C actually is only going to be a drain on our resources, but it's necessary in order for project A to succeed. You see where I'm going with this? So suddenly, rather than just having all these individual projects that are scattered across the business, there's a relationship between all these projects. So you have to be able to figure out, well, project A depends on B, project D, depends on project A. So we have to figure out how we're going to structure all of the change efforts that go on in the business that year in the right order with the highest value possible for the business. And that's what we call project portfolio management. Now that's the first part of portfolio management. After we get this intake process defined, then what happens is that the projects get sent out for execution. So the teams, the project teams here, are now executing against the direction that they've received from the portfolio manager. And they execute the projects, they track the status, they report the status up to the executive team. Then the executive team, based upon that status information, can make decisions to say, okay, we need to kind of redirect this project a little bit. This one is not adding value. We're going to cancel that one. And so they can keep all of the projects in line with the business strategy. Does that make sense? Okay. And so project portfolio management, it has other parts than these two, but these are the main parts just to help understand what project portfolio management is. It's the project intake and analysis, and then the execution and tracking. Now there is a third part that we're not really showing here on the screen. That's called benefits realization. And that's where we go back and we evaluate. Can we finish project A, B, C, and D? We promised everyone that these projects were going to yield these benefits. Did we actually realize those benefits? Yes, we did. No, we didn't. How can we do better? And so it's like the learning mechanism for the organization to keep getting better and better, not only at evaluating projects, but at executing them. Questions about portfolio management so far? Okay, all right. I'm assuming that means either the explanation has been either really good or really bad, and I've stumped you or whatever. Okay, now even here in on the Silicon Slopes, we've got two kinds of organizations that have two different views about project management. We have we have organizations that are pro PM, they are in favor of project management and this whole framework and language, and we have organizations that are anti-PM. What I mean by anti-PM is that someone, either in the executive team or somewhere else in the organization, has had such a negative experience with project managers in the past that they never want to have to deal with that ever again. And so what they've done is they said, we're not going to have project managers. We're going to call them something else. We'll call them Scrum Masters, or we will call them product managers, or whatever else it is, Now, does it mean that they're not doing project management? They still are doing project management, right? Because they still are defining something to be delivered, and they're still managing the work to deliver that something, okay? But so what will happen is that a lot of times in an anti-PM organization, what will happen is that they'll have lots of different agile teams, right? And they're going to be managing the delivery of software or technology, okay? And as opposed to the pro-PM teams where we've got different project managers managing different projects. But regardless of whether an organization is pro-PM or anti-PM, the project still, or rather the project spend, still has to line up to the business strategy at the top level, at the leadership level. Does that make sense? You cannot just say, we're not going to have PMs, therefore we don't need to like align the work within our company to the business strategy. That still has to happen in some way. There still has to be some tie between the money that you're spending on development of new technologies or going after new market segments or whatever, and what the business strategy is. So what happens is that the companies that prefer to work in an agile context, and not all companies have to be anti-PM to be using methods like agile, but there's this thing called SAFe. It's called the Scaled Agile Framework. Anybody ever heard of the Scaled Agile Framework before? Okay, the Scaled Agile Framework is kind of similar to project portfolio management, but that it is specifically for taking multiple agile teams and rolling up the work that they're doing to support the business strategy. That's a lot of buzzwords. I apologize. Okay, do I need to say that again, maybe in another way? We have to take all the work that the agile teams are doing, and we have to find a way to tie that work to what the business strategy dictates for that company. And the Scaled Agile Framework is a set of processes and tools to do just that. So it's kind of like a distant relative of project portfolio management. So we've got like the projectized organization, and we've got the non-projectized organization. And you know what? Here in Utah, I've interacted with leaders in both types of companies, and they can both be successful. It's not like another one of the reasons why companies don't sometimes want to have the project manager role is because the project manager has come and preached the dogma of project management, that project management is the only true way to realize business value. And I got news for you, it's not the only true way, right? There are so many different methods that are traditional or that are agile. Project managers have to not only be good at the discipline of and the technical side of project management, they also have to be good at leadership. If you were going to come into a project management role, you are not going to be just looking at your screen all the time. You're not going to be coding all day long. And that is a really key consideration if you want to know if project management is right for you. If you want to be building stuff with your own hands and coding and whatever, then project management may not be the right role for you. But if you have an aptitude for leadership and for interpersonal skills and dynamics between people, then project management might be really enjoyable for you. But you have to know that that's a requirement. So, all right, questions about different methods used to tie the project work to the business strategy. Yes, please.
What's the difference between scaled agile and just agile?
Okay, so that's a good question. So just agile is operating at the single project team or the single agile team level. So we're saying we're going to have an agile backlog with like features. Are you familiar with agile already? Okay, so you know about how agile works, but it is talking about a single team. But if you've got a company that now has 10 agile teams and they're all working on different things, how do you tie those together? Because if agile team A is developing a feature for this software for like the front end like web user interface, but agile team B is building middle tier services or APIs, and that there's some kind of a dependency between what the agile team A is working on and what agile team B is working on, SAFe can help to pull all that together so that the people like in the C-suite or at the vice president level, they can see everything that's going on and they can know, oh, don't make that decision. If you do, then we're gonna mess up agile team A. Does that make sense? Yeah. So agile is at the micro level and SAFe is at the macro level. Just the same way that project management is at the micro level and portfolio management is at the macro level. Yes?
With agile, it's a lot of feedback and iteration.
Yes.
Does that still go up into SAFe? Is there is there a lot of feedback and iteration when showing things to the executive suite? Or is it more like these guys have been using Agile and they're complete, and now we're just bundling the whole thing up without validating all of it together?
Right.
Moving forward.
The thing about SAFe and about Agile in general is that the requirement is to have continuous feedback, right? So that you're always keeping things, so you're always learning. And so even at the macro level in SAFe, that still happens. So you get features and status updates that roll up to the executive team, and they can see that like this epic has been delivered, or when is this epic supposed to be finished, et cetera. So they are kind of like the Scrum Master of Scrum Masters, if that makes sense. Yeah. Good question. Other questions about SAFe or about portfolio management? Okay. Alrighty. Okay. Now let's talk about some certifications and how you get into this role. So a friend of mine, her name is Lindsay Scott, and she's the founder of a company in the UK called RS People. And what they do is they place project managers up and down the United Kingdom. Like, they're amazing. I get a little buzz on my phone every time Lindsay's company posts a vacancy, and I'm just amazed at how, like, if there is any kind of a project management vacancy anywhere in the United Kingdom, they know about it and they're trying to fill it. Like, they're awesome. And every year for the last 15, 20 years, they've done what they call a PM census. So what they do is they go to all these different project managers in different companies in the UK, and they ask them information about like the industries they're working in and their age, and they have collected this demographic data over the years. And so what we want to do is I want to tell you about some of these trends that they noticed, even just in the age demographics of UK project managers. What happened in 2008? Housing crash, right? So we've got this financial crisis. Now, at that time, in 2008, you can see that these kind of three different segments of, or these age groups of project managers, it was more or less evenly distributed. A little bit higher on the project managers aged 35 to 49. But then you've also got project managers that are younger, under age 34, and project managers that are over the age of 50. And so we're at about, what, 27, and 46, right, percent for those groups. Somewhat evenly distributed. But look what happens over time. As time progresses, what happens? These 35 to 49s move into this group, right? So we've got more project managers that are over the age of 50, and we've got much fewer project managers now that are under the age of 34. Well, what gives? Who cares? Well, what this means is that companies, since the housing crisis, have become more and more risk averse in their processes for hiring project managers. What do I mean by risk averse? What does that mean? Risk averse means, yeah?
Not willing to take as many risks.
Not willing to take as many risks? Is that what you're going to say?
Well, essentially, they're not taking chances on younger people.
Right. So who are they going to hire now in 2018? They're going to hire the 50-year-old, right? So this is the 50-year-old who has got, probably has a PMP credential, if you're familiar with that, right? I think everyone is. But they also have experience specific to that industry. So I'll give you some examples. When we look at PM vacancies or contract openings across the country, we'll find that, for example, a company is looking for a healthcare PM. Well, there's a lot more going on in healthcare besides just project management, right? You have to meet regulations for HIPAA, so you have to be HIPAA compliant. There's all sorts of regulations about how medical data is handled. And so hiring organizations, they want more than just a PMP. They want the PMP and like 4 other credentials, right? And they want someone that's got 5 to 10 years of experience with those credentials. Is any 30-year-old going to have 10 years of experience with 5 credentials? No, all right? So this is really advantageous for you, though, because we're having this conversation right now. Because my suggestion to you, if you're interested in pursuing a project management career, is to find out your ideal industry, and then to find out what certifications are required for that industry specifically, and then plan your path to getting those certifications now. Because if you have to have a PMP and CISA and this and that and that and that, you want to get on top of that bandwagon as soon as you can. So what Swattage is doing right now, I'm kind of revealing to you a little bit about our business strategy. So I'm kind of cluing you in. but you don't have to go and blab this out to, all over the world. But is that we have senior consultants that have a lot of these certifications already. And so what we can do is we can sell their services into a hiring organization. And then we can have a junior PM or an associate PM shadow that leader person, right? So they can start getting that experience with those kinds of systems right now. They can pursue their certifications right now, so that rather than being 48 with 10 years of experience, they can be 38 or 32 or 30, right? With 5 to 10 years of experience with those credentials. That will put us in a really specific, it'll give us a very specific advantage, because then when these companies are looking to outsource project management on a contract basis, rather than paying for someone who is already that far and along in their career, they can get a better price from us. The associate PM that has now become a PM or a senior PM is now light years ahead of his or her peers in terms of pay grade. And also we can win more contracts. So it's a win-win-win for the customer, for our employees, and for us as a business. So are you following what I'm saying? Like, go and find out. Like, if I were you right now and I knew that I wanted to be working in web development in, gosh, what's an industry that you want to be in? If I knew that I wanted to be working in web dev in healthcare, or I wanted to be doing like data science in healthcare, I would go and I would look for like that ideal job and look at all of the certifications that they require. And then I would figure out like, okay, what else do I need to do to get those certifications? Because when you then show up for a job interview, or when you're applying and you're putting together your resume, right? You can speak to what is needed from that company in your resume. So your headline now is experienced PM or a certified project manager with CISA, HIPAA, and whatever else it is that, that they require. And then in the body of your resume, you can speak to the things that you've done in project management, in the project management terms that company needs. And this is where it's going to be kind of tricky, because you're going to have to figure out, is this a pro PM organization or is this an anti PM organization? Because if that company hates project managers, you do not want to come in and say, I'm a PMP and I've got this experience and I can follow this method, because what that is going to scream to them is, this person is going to be an inflexible process pusher. And they are not going to be flexible enough to work with our executive team. That could happen. Now, another thing that you can do things to mitigate that, right? If they want that, if they're looking for someone that has a rigid, background in project management with a method and a PMP, then go ahead, knock yourself out. Put that in your resume all you want. But also, you need to show you need to demonstrate how you have shown leadership in the context of project management. And you do that by talking about the people with whom you worked. So for example, if you were to talk about the bullets that you're going to put in your resume, you could say something like, worked across managed a cross-functional team of 9 business functions to deliver a project in 7 months under budget of $150,000. For example, that's one way you could say it. But you need to be able to, in as few words as possible, demonstrate that you got your method, that you got your business savvy, and that you've got your leadership. And if you can speak in terms of requirements definition, design work, and let's see, what else, like project budgeting and schedule management, and then execution, monitoring, controlling, tracking, status, etc. Then they're like, oh, this is what we need. We need someone who can do these things. So I would say, find the industry, find the certifications you need, then try to figure out if it's an anti-PM or a pro-PM organization, and then tailor the message in your resume accordingly. Yeah?
How do you get that sort of information? I've come up with some barriers, like just talking to somebody inside of the work is really difficult if I don't already have a contact today.
Because it'll be written in the posting. Like, it'll be laid out for you. Should we look at a posting together right now, actually, since we've got some time? It's 10:44. Do you want to do this? Yeah. Totally spontaneous. Okay. All right. Let's see. PM, HIPAA, is it HIPAA, right? HIPAA, PMP, contract vacancies, something like that. And now Indeed will probably come up and say, okay, project manager was CDC, HIPAA, or, okay, all right, let's look at this one. This could totally bomb, so that's my disclaimer, is that like this could totally blow up in my face. But okay, let's see. We got something in Columbia, South Carolina. We got this project manager leading web services in e-commerce company seeking a full-time. Let's look at that one. How about that, shall we? Okay, your first clue that it is a pro PM organization is that the title is project manager and not like product manager or scrum master or whatever. So, all right. So, leading web and e-commerce company seeking a full-time project manager to complement our growing team in Columbia, South Carolina. So it's got some more information about how they help South Carolina government entities, web enable their information services. Great. Electronic. Okay, great. So here are the duties. Complex internet and e-commerce products and services. Ability to lead. That's the second bullet. Like after they said that they want a project manager, they said that they want a leader. Okay? So you have to be able, in applying to this job, to show that you're a leader. Ability to lead project teams and manage all activities in a project lifecycle. They want a project lifecycle, so they're going to be a pro PM organization. Monitoring, controlling, and closing. These are the terms they're using. They're using like the project phases right out of the PMBOK, right? The project management body of knowledge. So when you are writing your cover letter and your resume, you want to use terms like initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, controlling, and closing. Like just saying those 5 things right there demonstrates that you are aware of what those project phases are. And they will pick up on that. Because if the hiring manager here is like a portfolio manager or a portfolio director and is looking for someone that has that background, as soon as you say that, you're going to have their attention. If you don't say that, they're going to be like, nah, this person really doesn't understand what project management is all about. Associated with projects across the business. So this is like a cross-functional PM role working with marketing, web dev, information systems, etc. Help to determine project scope and create proposals based on scope of work. Responsible for the accuracy, quality, and integrity of all project documentation and internal external communication. All right, so lead partner meetings. Technical writing, lead partner meetings together, so that you can see more leadership and more technical skills kind of blending together here in this role. Yeah, so what I would do is I would take your resume and I would just look at these points and I would make sure that you address them in some way. In fact, I have a resume format where I put kind of like the work history on the right-hand side, and then on the left third of the page, I just have a set for skills and experience, just skills, and then I just basically take whatever points that they have here and I write them in the left-hand column of that resume. That way you don't have to rewrite the resume every single time for every employer, but you can have a section that speaks to the specific points in the job posting. Now what if we were to look for a job posting in an anti-PM organization, right? So you're comfortable establishing and evangelizing a desired end state or outcome and motivating others to come along. Okay, that is what project management is, but they have worded it in a way that is not using any words from the project management framework. Okay, so they're going to speak a language that you have to learn how to speak when you go into to interview with them or when you're submitting your resume. You ask detailed and specific questions. Let's see. You care about the success of your customers. All right. So because this product management role is more than just executing a project, though, because it's got some project-related responsibilities, but also this is like a customer-facing role that is responsible for creating a user experience. So there's more going on here than just project management. In some projectized organizations, they'll have a product manager, and then they will have project managers that support the product manager to execute the products. So you need to know that a product manager role in a non-projectized organization is going to have other responsibilities besides just project management. And here you're going to have a lot of business savvy, not just technical skills. So, all right, there you go. I hope that our spontaneous exercise was informative and successful. All right, any other questions that you have that I can answer? Everyone's good. All right, it is 10:51. You got 9 minutes. I'm 1 minute over. Sorry, Britta. Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any other questions you have. Just come up to me and yeah, please let me know if you want to keep talking or if you're interested in finding out more about Swattage in the future. I don't have any vacancies open right now, but we may have, for example, if you've got another year of school, then I would really be interested in keeping in touch. Yes, Britta.
I think just before we wrap up, who is doing project management on their enterprise projects? So I recognize that it takes a lot of you out of it, but on your enterprise project. Like Wyatt, are you the main team lead?
I am a team lead.
Okay.
I'm not technically the project manager, but a lot of what I'm doing does overlap with those.
Great,
roles, so.
great. That'll put you so much further ahead when you go to actually apply for a role that you've already done the management activities. Yeah.
Jaime, I think are you leading? Yeah, you're a TM as the project lead. What experiences are you having? What aligns with what Dale's saying?
With what Gail said, just kind of taking everything, actually putting it into practice. Like he told us like what a PM should be doing around their day, but putting it into practice and getting the experience, like work delegation or talking to stakeholders about certain requirements about a software. It all depends. It's all different, but it's pretty fun.
Great.
Morgan, you're leading.
Yeah.
For me, it's a lot of conversations back to the stakeholders, our sponsors, making sure that we are on track with the deliverables that they're looking for in the way that they want them.
Yeah.
And making sure that everybody understands that and then progressing the team towards that goal.
Yeah, that's great.
How important, Dale, is it for a team lead on a development project to be, how well trained do they need to be in coding and being able to speak?
So the question is, how technical does the PM lead need to be?
Respect, because that's an issue that I kind of hear. Is sometimes the team lead, the technology management team lead,
Right.
next to all the devs, there's a little bit of a rub sometimes there when the devs feel like this person doesn't know.
Yeah, that's a really good point and good question. I think that so I've definitely been in the shoes of the PM that doesn't know anything technical about what's going on, and had to like sit there and listen and pound my head against the wall trying to understand what the technical resources were telling me, and it can be challenging because sometimes, and you probably are these people, right? You're the kind of people that you kind of think like a machine too, right? You're going to answer the question that is posed to you in a very literal way. And that project manager, if he or she is very junior, like they may not really know what question they should be asking. So I think that what you need to do, I don't think it's an absolute requirement to have a lot of technical knowledge to be a PM leader, but you have to be smart enough to ask the right questions to understand what the technical constraints are that impact the project schedule and deliverables. So, and then you have to be able to pick up on cues from the technical team members to ask additional follow-up questions. And as you do that more and more, what will happen is that you will develop a rapport with the technical managers. So with each new project and each time that you have like your Oracle person or your SAP person or whoever, that leader is sitting down with you and helping you understand the technology and how it impacts the project schedule, budget, etc., then you'll pick up on that more and more, and they will respect you more, and you'll be able to interact. And pretty soon, you will have enough knowledge to be able to speak to why that suggestion won't work, we have to do it this way. Yeah.
Yeah, I have some of the TMs pair programming fellow members on their team, and they've been really surprised by the benefit of that, and at the same time, devs that have been like, wow, I didn't really know what the TMs did, and
Yeah.
now I can see this is really an important role.
Yeah.
You get to keep your nose in and code while they kind of manage all that other
Yeah.
stuff.
I want to give one caution. If you are actually working as a project manager or as a project leader, you should likely not be doing any coding yourself on that project. And the reason why is because it'll take your time away from the management activities. And it also, this is very, very subtle, it also signals that the leadership doesn't necessarily value the project manager role as much as they should, right? If you're in a small business and you have to wear 2 hats, fine. But as you go, as you get into larger and larger companies, you have to look at what's the need for the project management activities themselves, and is the company really taking that need seriously? And if they're not taking that need seriously, then you need to find a way to influence those people to help convince them that that the lack of emphasis on management is creating problems for people that are executing, or you need to find another place to work. So, yeah.
Are there specific skills that you would recommend that our students practice now in their classes and group work to improve their leadership skills?
Specific skill sets to develop?
Yeah, so for example, like we can work on the certifications, right? We can work on the experience in terms of practicing project management in the
Yeah.
different phases of a project. But leadership is a much more difficult one to say, oh yeah, I took a class on leadership and now I'm a good leader. Like it doesn't really work like that. So
Right.
I'm just wondering if you can give advice to our students who think like, well, I want to get better at working with people,
Right.
but I don't know how to do that. So what would you recommend that they can do or practice?
So I'll name very specific skill sets that I'd be happy to come back if you want another time and kind of have a session just on the kind of these leadership development opportunities. But you need to first understand yourself and your own emotional intelligence, right? So you need to be able to understand how you emotionally react or respond in situations of stress. And then you need to be able to recognize that in other people. And then there's also something that we call political landscape management, okay? Which is where you take all the people that are a stakeholder on your project and you analyze, well, who are they, what is on their agenda, what are they trying to accomplish, and are they for or against this effort, and how can I or who can influence them to come across the aisle if they are against the project to now be for the project, right? So there's a lot of interpersonal, like we call it socio-political uncertainty or complexity that has to be managed. And there's a really great book by a man named Joel R. DeLuca called Political Savvy, A Systematic Approach to Leadership Behind the Scenes, that I recommend to everybody. And we can come back and have a workshop on how that works if you'd like. But I feel bad for the green PM who comes into a role without those skills, probably because I was that person at one point. And so I have a lot of empathy for those people. But chin up, you know, you can learn those things with time. I don't think anyone is limited to a ceiling in their emotional intelligence. I think we can all grow in that regard. It's not quite the same thing as IQ, you know, and I wish you the very best. And I want to just paint a picture for you as we're out of time. Just imagine yourself at the end of whatever that first project is, where you've been able to build great relationships with people and get that project across the finish line, and you can step back and say, wow, I made a real difference in that business. And that'll be you someday if you decide that you want to pursue a leadership role or a project management role. So thank you very much for your time, and hope to see you again.